Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, DwyerVIP.com for free premium sports picks. Look us up in the sports section on Roku. We're there. Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. First, a few comments to gamblers. In the NBA right now, I believe the Miami Heat are overvalued for the NBA title on the futures market. We don't even know if LeBron James is going to return to the Heat, right? Already you've had the exit of Shane Battier. Even with Shane Battier this year, the team was not in the top 10 in defensive efficiency. Dwayne Wade did miss more than 20 games during the regular season. Ray Allen might well retire, right, for a team that thin that might lose its superstar. To have futures props of, less than a plus 400 is a bit foolhardy. Let me just say, too, that when you see a team as overvalued as the Heat are, and let me point out, the San Antonio Spurs are getting longer odds on the futures market for next year's NBA championship than the Heat are. When you see a team as overrated as the Heat, that means that other teams are underrated in the odds. To the gambling hardcore, take a look at that. Let me also say this too. I made a video yesterday. We try to tackle tough fights here. I took Kell Brook over Shawn Porter. I'm hedging to play with Porter by KO. Got a lot of comments that Kell Brook hasn't fought anyone. I believe that's boxing folklore. What I want people to do is to look hard at Kell Brook's record. The argument is that some of the people Kell Brook fought had losses. Understand, young guys who aren't Olympic gold medalists, who don't have the big money behind them, are often placed in tough fights, right? Take a look at the lightweight champion Miguel Vasquez's early career, where he was thrown in the ring against guys like Saul Alvarez early, right? Now, my point to you is Rafael Jakowitz is a guy who was championship level, right? I believe he beat Jean Zavek in a fight. He's one of the victims of Kell Brook. Also understand, too, Carson Jones is a guy who's trained by Abel Sanchez, Gennady Golovkin's trainer. If you look into his record, you're going to see he beat Saeed Quali, a quality guy, right? He also fought other tough guys. And so my point is this. Maybe he has some losses on his record. It doesn't mean he isn't a tough opponent. I would argue style-wise, Carson Jones was a tougher opponent for Kell Brook than any opponent that Shawn Porter has faced. Keep in mind, Kell Brook's a hoverer. Carson Jones is a nonstop, relentless stalker. That's a tough matchup. Also, take a look at Matthew Hatton's record. You're going to see that Matthew Hatton went the distance against Saul Alvarez. I believe here online I predicted the over in that fight. Understand, Matthew Hatton might not have the best record, but he's hard-nosed. He's a tough opponent. You're kidding yourself if you think Kell Brook has been fed a stream of cream puffs. Let's talk about Gary Russell versus Vasyl Lomachenko in a fight that I think is going to be a barn burner. Let me make a couple of points. First, I believe that somebody's going to get knocked out in this fight. I believe you want to look at that possibility. Second, if I had a gun to my head and I had to pick a winner in this fight, I would pick Vasyl Lomachenko, who, of course, just lost to Orlando Salido. Now, let's talk about Gary Russell. Gary Russell has blinding speed. Gary Russell, in fact, might have the fastest hands in the sport of boxing. When you talk Gary Russell, you're talking about, let's say, Manny Pacquiao type of hand speed. Here's the problem. It's hand speed. He hasn't married it to foot speed. Gary Russell, quite frankly, even with a decided hand speed advantage in fights, doesn't know how to bank rounds on his back foot. In fact, Look closely at Gary Russell fights. He's front foot heavy. What I've found is that many of these boxers are actually fighters. Gary Russell is the kind of guy who gets caught up in the heat of the moment. Many of Gary Russell's knockouts are high risk. He's trading up close with the guy, right? He's throwing fast punches. He's catching guys clean. The point, though, is he's trading with the guy. A lot of the speed advantage goes out the window because Gary is in front of his victim. He's in the pocket. Now, what I want people to realize is Vasyl Lomachenko is an Olympic gold medalist. More importantly, his game is an advanced game. I know when you look at his number of pro fights, it's deficient, right? But understand, he fought one of the hardest matchups possible for him in Orlando Salido. What I want you to do when you look at that fight, of course I'm getting calls now. What I want you to do when you look at that fight is I want you to see the portion of the fight where he hurts Salido. He gets inside. Lomachenko is a guy who can neutralize speed. He has defense. More importantly, up close, he can go to the body. He's a withering body puncher. Now that Salido fight's a bit of an optical illusion. Number one, because Salido is vastly underrated. Right? Salido, I know he had a bad start to his fight against Mikey Garcia. But people need to understand that Salido is one of the guys who, when he says, after that fight, which was stopped because of a headbutt and Mikey Garcia's broken nose, when he says that he was just starting to catch his rhythm, you need to take him seriously. Understand, Salido once beat the Ghost, Robert Guerrero, right? Only to have it declared a no contest when he failed a post-fight drug test. Well, understand, when Lomachenko hurts Salido inside, Salido, who's one of boxing's savvier fighters, does everything possible to grab Lomachenko's hands. In other words, Salido's the kind of guy who keeps a clear head when he's hurt. I'm telling you, the Lomachenko-Salido fight, and Lomachenko, I'll concede, didn't let his hands go enough in that fight. But that fight could easily have resulted in a Lomachenko victory by KO had he not been fighting the kind of savvy, experienced vet who keeps his head and who knows how to handle business when he's hurt inside, like Orlando Salido. So people need to throw out, in my opinion, that Salido-Lomachenko fight. Right? The public doesn't appreciate how good Salido is. Lomachenko tried to jump to the front of the line by taking on one of the toughest matchups for him. Let me point out, too, Salido himself is a guy who can throw volume, who can rough you up inside to the body. So what you had was Lomachenko facing a guy with a similar game, who had vastly more experience and who had fought the vastly superior opposition. Right? Keep in mind, Salido's the one who beat Wanma twice to get the title way back when. Right? So Salido's a guy who was fighting Juan Manuel Marquez one day. Lost the fight by a wide margin on the judges' scorecards. But it was during the fight when Salido realized that he was hanging with Marquez that Salido then thought to himself that he had to take the sport seriously. Let me make another point, too. People were commenting on the number of losses Kell Brook's opponents have had. Take a look at the number of losses Orlando Salido has had, particularly early in his career. You can't go by that metric because look at where Salido is today. In my opinion, Gary Russell is an easier fight for Lomachenko than is Orlando Salido. I believe if Lomachenko hurts Russell like he hurts Salido, Russell is not going to know how to grab his hand, have his glove lodged under his underarm, do some other moves that Salido did to survive. Why do I think the fight ends by KO? And by the way, I'm not sure who gets the KO. Right? If I had to pick a side, I'd take Lomachenko. But why do I think a KO is likely in this fight? It's because there are two questions for me. One is, can Salido handle Gary Russell's hand speed? Right? Russell not only throws punches in bunches, but his punches have pop when he wants them to. Right? So there is a possibility that Lomachenko is going to get in the fast lane here against a guy going 100 miles an hour, and he's not going to know how to react. That's the first possibility. The other possibility is going to be that Lomachenko gets inside, smothers Russell's punches. And then we find out that Gary Russell, who looks spectacular on film, on his front foot, doesn't have remotely the same game on his back foot. The problem when you have a gift like Gary Russell's hand speed or like a 100-mile-an-hour fastball is that you often don't learn the rest of the sport. Gary Russell, in my opinion, is low on lateral movement. Gary Russell, in my opinion, has blinding hands that seem to have blinded everyone to the fact that he doesn't have blinding feet. In terms of a rhythm and stuff like that, I don't like Gary Russell's center of gravity. You know, I prefer a guy who can get on his back foot. I like Andre Ward. Right? Andre Ward can get on his front foot. Right? Look at the Green fight. He can get on his front foot. But then Andre Ward can also get on his back foot. Look at the Edison Miranda fight. And be around the ring. He can shift modes. Right? It's not all hand speed. It's not all I'm in front of you throwing more punches than you can block. There's a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. I haven't seen the Gary Russell plan B where he's on his back foot. I haven't seen the Gary Russell plan C where he's using lateral movement to set up the hand speed. So, the bet I like, and these bets have blown up on me on occasion, right? Understand the risk involved, right? If the fight goes the distance, you lose it all. But the first bet I like is to take both guys by KO, right? The second bet I like is Lomachenko to win the fight. In fact, let's break it down a different way. I like Lomachenko to win the fight, hedged with Gary Russell by KO. Not that I think Lomachenko necessarily has to win it by decision. I don't. I believe Lomachenko gets the KO. I think 12 rounds is a long time in the ring. Right? Keep in mind, neither of these guys has a lot of experience going 12 rounds. I'm expecting someone to get stopped. But what I like is the idea that if I take Lomachenko simply to win, and you're getting less than minus 200 odds on it. If I take Lomachenko simply to win, hedged with Russell by KO, and you're getting, Russell's already an underdog, so you're getting big odds on Russell by KO, then I can split up how much I bet on each side of the bet. So if either happens, I make a profit. I like Lomachenko to win, hedged with Russell by KO. If I had to pick a side, it would be on Lomachenko. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. And don't be surprised if this fight doesn't end before the 10th round. Let me hear from you. Thanks for stopping by.